Terminator. Hell yeah. Okay. So I've been wanting to do this for a while. This video and the next two are going to be sort of a retrospective on the first three Terminator movies, which, in my opinion, is the true Terminator Trilogy. Now, I have a deep fondness for all three of these movies. Yes, even three. I just think they're fun. The first two, obviously, fantastic. Third one's a little goofy, but I still love it. It's fun. There's some great action scenes, and it actually progresses the story the way it probably should have been progressed. So, obviously, today we're starting with the OG, the Terminator from 1984. Debut of Arnold Schwarzenegger as the godless killing machine. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this movie from oh my god, how many years ago was that? It's old, so 84. Then you've been warned that I'm going to be talking about the movie in detail. And yeah, there you go. So let's just get into it. I'm sure you all seen it. So as usual, I'm going to try to make this fast and probably fail, but I'm going to actually put in an honest effort to breeze through the story so I can actually talk about what I think about the movie instead of just the story. So, alright, here we go. I'm wasting time already. 2029, couple years from right now, as per this video's release, we have the Terminator War in the future, lasers firing, big ass machines with treads crawling over human skulls, and all that awesome scenery that you see throughout the series moving forward is established as the very first thing we see in this movie. Fantastic. Little thing like that. Then it cuts to the modern day, aka 1984, which, I mean, that's when it was released. So there's a guy in a garbage truck and a flash of light. His vehicle loses power, and there you have naked Arnold, and he's standing there. And the guy's like, what the fuck? And he takes off because he's like, okay, this is too much for me, man. And then we have Bill Paxton as a punk rocker kid and his motley crew of friends who are promptly taken care of by naked Arnold, who then proceeds to take one of their clothes, kills two of them, one runs off, etc. So Arnold's got some new clothes now. He's ready to roll. And then we see another alley and the landing of Kyle Reese, who did not take the time travel nearly as well as the emotionless robot who doesn't even breathe, because he's shaken up visibly. I guess he's never time traveled before. It's got to be an experience, right? So he lands, steals a hobo's pants, and gets chased by the cops through a mall, and gets normal clothing after that. He's got some sick Nikes and some pants that Velcro at the bottom, which I was alive in the 80s, but I don't remember that. So that must have been just phasing out in 84. Because yeah, I definitely don't remember that. And then we show Sarah Connor, who is basically the hero of the first two movies, essentially. Well, I mean, debatably John is the second. Well, you know what I mean. She's the one that is the original target of the Terminator. Without her, there's no John Connor. Without John Connor, humans don't overtake Skynet and win the war. And so Skynet sends the robot back. You know all the deal. Well, not a robot. Sorry. Cybernetic organism. Cyborg. Model 101. So you guys know. Yeah, so he or she's, doing her thing, hates her job. A kid puts ice cream in her pocket. All these customers are bitching her and asking for coffee and getting orders wrong. And that's not her fault. That's the chef's fault, if I know anything about the serving industry. Although maybe it was. Who knows? She's a blonde young girl. She's, just waiting for time to party at that night, which she's going to be going out with her roommate and her roommate's boyfriend, and I guess her boyfriend at the time. They're gonna go dance the night away, as they do in the 80s. Side note, Sarah Connor has a pet iguana, so that's pretty fucking cool. Go back to Kyle. He's kind of getting his shit together. He's got a shotgun now. He's got a car that he took. So did the Terminator, though, unfortunately. He also has a car and weapons. But Kyle's at a construction site. He sees a tracked He sees a tracked vehicle, and it gives him post-traumatic stress flashbacks to his time in the war with these these treaded Terminator vehicles running over human skulls and stuff. He has a flashback and shows his friend getting killed and all that good, lovely stuff. Anyway, all this time, Sarah's getting ready for her roommate and her and their partners to go out. Her boyfriend cancels, so she's all down in the dumps. She's like, I'm just going to go see a movie or something, or go to a diner or whatever. And her friend's like, all right, well, have fun. Poor Sarah. Anyway, not so poor Sarah when you compare it to her friends. Her roommate there, who is... Her address is tracked down by Arnold, the Terminator, who looks in a phone book. There's 3 Sarah Connors, and he proceeds through killing the first 2 Sarah Connors, and then tracks down the final one, saying, okay, there's only 3. I'm in the right location. This has got to be her. When he comes into the building, he sees Ginger, which is the roommate, who's dancing in her skivvies. He comes through the bedroom window and first kills the boyfriend, because you got to do that. Tries to put up a fight. No chance. Then kills Ginger, assuming that it's Sarah Connor. But, unfortunately for Sarah, she made the brilliant choice of calling and leaving a message on the machine, because she's now aware that Kyle is following her. And she had seen on the news at her work that another Sarah Connor had been targeted. And then later in the diner, she found out that, or in another diner, like at the night when she took off from her friend, her boyfriend bailed on her, she saw on the news a second Sarah Connor. So she called the cops. She's hiding out in this, like a dance bar or whatever, and the cops basically advise her, like, stay out in the open. We're gonna send a car to pick you up. She's like, all right. Anyway, she's assuming it's Kyle that's killing all these people. No, it's not. Kyle is at the bar too, so she's kind of like, shit, that's not good. But it is good because the Terminator is also at the bar, and he targets her and has a little laser thing on her head, and luckily Kyle pulls out his shotty, which he made into a sawed-off, attaboy, blasts Terminator in the back, giving her an opportunity to run, and then you get the classic line, come with me if you want to live. While this is happening too, sorry, I forgot to mention, we're introduced to the police characters. There's a lieutenant, I do not recall his name or the actor's name, but his detective under him is played by Lance Henriksen, so I'm just going to call him Lance, because Lance Henriksen is a badass, and he's, like, cooler than any of the characters he's played, which are all cool too, so that's saying a lot. I love Lance Henriksen. Sorry, I'm getting carried away with my fanboying. Oh, Pumpkinhead, I gotta do that movie too, that'd be a good one. Anyway, whatever, so they do an introduction. There's a good line where they're trying to reach Sarah before she ends up calling the cops, so this is like slightly before she gets into the bar or whatever, and they're about to go deal with the press, the lieutenant, and he's like, how do I look? And Lance is like shit, boss, and his response, yo mama. It's like, yes, love it. So that's good. If you can't tell, this movie is like very 80s. Like the hair is so 80s, but it works so well. It's dated, but it works because it was the 80s. So anyway, Sarah in the bar leaves the message on the phone, which plays shortly after the Terminator killed her roommate. And she's like, Ginger, it's Sarah. And then he looks, and he's like, okay, so this wasn't Sarah. And she says where she is, or something along those lines, and Terminator follows her, and that's how he ends up in the same bar. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. Kyle Reese, shotgun, they run off, etc. Come with me if you want to live. That's where we left off, right? Yeah. Okay, and so every time Kyle shoots this Terminator guy, he keeps getting up, and Sarah's like, what the hell, is this guy like a superhero or something? Later the cops assume that he's wearing like a Kevlar vest or like an armored vest or something under his trench coat, which makes sense at the time. Speaking of which, well, that comes a little bit, sorry. Anyway, keeps getting up, there's like a car chase scene where Kyle is like kind of trying to explain to her, like, this is what's going on, the future war, blah, blah, blah. This is a Terminator, it's part man, part machine. Yeah, she's like, is it a robot? And he's like, it's part man, part machine, cyborg, cybernetic organism, blah, blah, blah. It does that whole spiel. Another classic line of dialogue that I can't remember for my life, apparently. And she's like, why me? And he tells the story of basically your son, John Connor, is like the savior of humankind. He's the leader of the resistance. He's the one that brings humanity together to fight back and eventually kill the Terminator. In a last desperate attempt to revert the war, they sent this Terminator back in time to erase Sarah Connor from existence, ensuring that 100% John Connor will not be born. And he volunteered to go back to protect Sarah for John. So that's where we're at. Yeah, Terminator catches up to them. There's like a whole scene in a parkade with the cops looking. They switch cars, obviously, but they are found by the Terminator again. They're driving, and there's a crash scene, and Terminator's car goes flying into a wall, but their car is wrecked also, and there's like a swarm of cop cars following them at this time, and they all are like, freeze, put your hands in, and she's saying to Kyle, like, we gotta listen, they'll shoot you. Like, you listen to these guys. They look, though, and the Terminator is gone from the car, so he's out there still. Anyway, they take Kyle and Sarah into custody, and that's where we meet Dr. Silverman, who's a recurring character in the series. His role is... He's got a good role. He's obviously the skeptic, right? Like, everyone's a skeptic, to be fair. Like, the cops don't believe this either. So they show him interviewing Kyle, and he's, like, trying his best to not treat what Kyle is saying as a joke, and Kyle's getting frustrated. He can obviously tell. He's not stupid, right? He knows this guy doesn't believe him, and he's just wasting time. Like, we're not safe here. It's just him and me. There's no one else. I can't go back to my time period. It's the whole spiel. And for some reason, they show Sarah this tape of him explaining this, and I guess she's starting to maybe believe it. I don't know. But yeah, that's when they explain, oh, he's probably wearing a Kevlar vest. That's what he keeps getting up, etc. Anyway, you'll be safe. This place has 30 cops in it. You're good, because, you know, cops always fare very well in these kind of movies. They always save... Well, actually, in Cursed, they did save the day, so that was kind of awesome for that movie to do that. But in the end, they don't save the day, let's be real. Anyway, Arnold shows up. He did some self-surgery on himself with some somewhat dated prosthetics and practical effects, but at the time they would have looked pretty solid, I think. They don't hold up great, but the movie is so good, I don't care. So, whatever. They have like clearly a mask of Arnold with a cutout thing where you can see his red eye and stuff, and it's like, whatever. I'm buying it because I don't give a shit. The movie's great. I don't care. Anyway. A lot of movies, I won't let that stuff slide, but this one is solid enough with the story and the acting and the progression and the action and everything that it's passed. Icky gets a pass for that. So he shows up, the Terminator, at the cop shop, and the guy at the window obviously hasn't seen him. Well, none of them really have seen him, but he says, I hear Sarah Connor. Sorry, that voice is terrible, but I have to do it because it's Arnold. Sarah Connor's here, I'm her friend, can can I see her or whatever. I just gave up on the accent. Anyway, the cop's like, she's being interrogated right now, or she's giving a statement or whatever, so you can't see her right now. You can wait on the bench if you want, and when she comes out, you can talk to her. And then we get the famous line, I'll be back. So, fantastic. And he is back with a car through the wall, killing that cop at the desk, so that's fun. Anyway, he proceeds to take out every cop in the building, including the lieutenant and Detective Lance Henriksen, who were kind of built up to be, potentially characters that live. No, they don't. They get gunned down like everyone else. Poor Lance. Anyway. They take off. They get away basically, and they end up sleeping under a bridge, and they go and they get a hotel, and he's making plastique and stuff in the hotel, and I guess that's romantic enough, being hunted and making pipe bombs to fornicate. So they make the love, aka make the John Connor. So yeah, by now, if you couldn't tell, Kyle Reese is John Connor's father. Little paradox thing for you there, so that's always fun. You gotta introduce paradox, right? Anyway, at this point, Terminator has her little black book, which I don't know if they still have those now, but in the 90s and 80s, you'd have a little phone and address book with everyone's phone number and address in it. So when he was at Sarah's place, he had taken this for safekeeping. Anyway, he's at Sarah's mom's place, knowing that she will eventually call her mom to let her know that she's okay, which she does. Unfortunately, I'm going to assume that the mom is dead. They don't show it, but they show the door smashed in and like things tipped over. So yeah, she's toast. Anyway, he has this vocal ability to imitate other people's voices, which he does when he's in the cop car to figure out, where they are, etc. When he steals that cop car, which he does. I don't know if I mentioned that or not, but that was the chase scene before they get arrested. He was in a cop car. Anyway, so he mimics the mom's voice, and Sarah's like, I can't tell you where I am, I'm sorry. And using the mom's voice in the assembly, she's like, sweetie, come on, please, I need to know you're okay, where you are. And she's okay, fine. Gives the hotel name. Terminator looks it up. Shit, Terminator's on the way. So shortly after the sexy times, he shows up and they bolt again. And there's a scene where they take off, and the Terminator like grabs some like little motorcycle, little red Yamaha or Suzuki or something. It's a nice chase scene on the highway. He's like throwing pipe bombs at him and trying to hit him, but he doesn't. And anyway, they end up wrecking the car. They flip the car. The bike also gets wrecked. Arnold stands up and is hit by like a fuel tanker semi-truck. Driver gets out. Biggest mistake of his life. He has very, very short life at that point because he is quickly subdued and ended on the street. And Arnold gets in the vehicle, tells the other guy, get out. And takes the fuel truck and starts chasing them. And they're running on foot, and he's like got this vehicle. I mean, that's kind of, whatever. So Kyle like ducks to the side, and he's like, keep running. And she's like, okay. But he has a pipe bomb left, which he sticks in the tailpipe or whatever of that fuel tanker. It explodes, and you see the Terminator get out, and he's on fire, and there's like fuel everywhere, and he like collapses, and he tries to stand, and he collapses again, and they're like, yay! She goes up to the fire, and Kyle slowly walks out, and she's like, oh my god, and they have little hugs, and she's like, we did it! And of course, that signals the time for it to be proven that you did not do it, because the Terminator's endoskeleton stands up now, and proceeds to chase them again. He's got a bit of a limp, his leg's banged up, obviously. He's been through a lot. Even the most well-designed machines cannot handle repeated abuse of that magnitude. Anyway, he's still mobile, though, so... what happens then? They go into, like, it's like an industrial manufacturing plant or something. They show all these, like hydraulic car building things, or I don't know what they're building there, but it's a manufacturing hydraulic plant or whatever. And Kyle quickly turns on all the machines, like it's a distraction, and noise will cover their footsteps, whatever, and they try to hide. And Terminator comes in, he's looking around at all these incredibly primitive machines, kind of like, I'm above you, but he's a Terminator, so he's not thinking that. But anyway, whatever. Essentially, he chases them onto a platform. Kyle Reese is like, he's shot at this point too, by the way. He was shot in the chase there, so he's kind of slowly bleeding out a little bit. He grabs a metal pole and he's like, Sarah, just run. Like, I'm toast. I'll hold them off. And he does his best. I mean, he gets a couple of good shots on the Terminator's head. Terminator gives him one swat and he goes flying across the platform. But this ain't over, because he has a pipe bomb left, which he shoves into the Terminator with like a short fuse and lights it, and boom, Terminator blows up. Half of him goes that way, half of him goes that way. Curtains, right? Kyle slowly dies in Sarah's arms, and yeah, sadness ensues. And then lo and behold, the explosion, it knocks Sarah down. He doesn't die in her arms, but he sees him die or whatever. She has like a big shard of metal in her leg, and she like pulls it out, and oh god, yeah, that would hurt. That would hurt. So she's not able to stand, so she's like crawling away. And then you see the upper half of the endoskeleton crawling towards her, and she's like, for fuck's sake, this thing won't die. Like, die, please. Anyway, so it's like a chase scene, but they're like both crawling at a snail's pace, which, in my opinion, was an excellent choice to keep the momentum evenly paced, because if one was faster than the other, it wouldn't be as intense. If one was slower than the other, it wouldn't be as intense. But keeping them at roughly the same speed is just like, okay, the tension stays where it is. Anyway, she sees this hydraulic press, and she's like, okay. I mean, well, there's no YouTube. I was going to say, I've seen the YouTube channels, but there's no YouTube in the 80s. So she crawls through the hydraulic press, knowing that this thing will follow her. It does. She quickly pulls herself out, pulls her leg out, the hand comes out, and then she presses the button, and Terminator's dead. That's it. Taken to the hospital, and the cops and police arrive. Fast forward, we got her on the road in Mexico. She's at like a truck stop or something. She's recording tapes as she's driving for John Connor, who is now in her belly. So she's preggo from Kyle, and yeah, she goes to this gas station, and a little kid runs up and takes a picture and is like in Spanish, like, hey, buy this for me for $5 or my dad will beat me or something like that. It's like, okay. The guy translates. She's like, okay, $4. And he's like, see. Gives him the picture, and it's the same picture that Kyle had in the future to memorize what Sarah looked like. So that's, I guess, the picture that John had that he gave him before he went back in time. It was destroyed in the future, like in the war or whatever, but he like memorized every like detail of her face and whatever. So anyway, that's like our last scene. We end on that little picture, and then cue like the greatest theme song from like any sci-fi thriller movie ever. It's a Terminator theme. It's so good. Brad Fidel, I think you pronounce his name, or Fidel, or I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but he nailed it with this theme. Stan Winston nailed it with the design of the endoskeleton and the future things. James Cameron nailed it with the movie in general. This film, I personally think it holds up just as well as Terminator 2, which everyone says is the best in the entire series. I argue that Terminator 1 is just as good in very different ways. So, Terminator, like the Terminator, the 84 original, is treated like a sci-fi horror kind of, which is done very well. Like the tension is there, whereas Terminator 2 and 3 are like action movies essentially, and they do that very well, to be fair, particularly 2, to their credit. But this one is a different kind of movie, a different pace of a movie, a different atmosphere, and it nails it just as well as T2 nails its atmosphere. I'll be honest, I kind of personally would rate Terminator 1 just slightly above Terminator 2, and that's a hot take, I get it. A lot of people are going to say, you're insane, dude. T1's good, but T2 is like the greatest sequel ever. And you know what? I'm not exactly arguing, although I would say Aliens is right up there with T2 as the greatest sequel ever. But anyway, I'm going on too long. I'm going to give a rating. We're going to give it a 9.31. Why the 1? Because it's just better than 9.3. I don't know. That's my logic for now. I can't really remember what I rated in the 9s particularly, but 9.31 feels right. Excellent movie, excellent beginning to a franchise that has sadly come very far downhill. I come back to the first 3 movies quite frequently. I guess Salvation technically is a continuation of Terminator 3, but everything after T3 to me was just not as fun, not as good. I don't know how to say it other than that without being rude. Although I'll also say I don't think Genesis was the worst movie in the series, in all honesty. I would actually call that probably the 4th best. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to get into the after T3 movies. Maybe I will down the road, but yeah, 1, 2, and 3, I always come back to them. They're fantastic. If I'm in the mood for something a little bit more on the edge of your seat, I'll put in Terminator 1. If I want ridiculous action, non-stop fun, great one-liners, Terminator 2. If I want just ridiculous, over-the-top, but amazingly done action scenes, Terminator 3. Anyway, I could gush on forever about these first 3 movies, but we're talking about The Terminator, 1984 one. Like I said, fantastic all around the board. If for some reason you haven't watched it because you've seen maybe some of the scenes that are like little dated looking. Like, again, like I said, when he has like kind of a plastic face when he's fixing his eye, yeah, it looks fake. It does. I mean, there is stop motion animation that you can tell is stop motion in the warehouse scene of the endoskeleton moving in some scenes, but that almost makes it creepier to me. Like, I like this stuff that people would probably scoff at, and I think that almost makes it hold up, as dated as it is, as well as it does. So that is my retrospective on the Terminator from 1984. Like I said, I could go on forever about this, but I'm not going to. I managed to stay under 30 minutes this time, so I'm going to end it here, and stay tuned. The next video will be looking at Terminator 2 Judgment Day from 1991. So stay tuned if you enjoyed this for some reason. All right, peace.